Alright, so I'm up in San Francisco. I'm going to paint a scene that I have painted in the past, but I'm going to do a larger version today. There are some challenges painting in this location. Number one, it's really windy. Number two, there's the constant sound of the cable cars. I don't know if you can hear that, that sound. That's the cables running under the street. But anyway, I'm going to go for it and we'll see what happens. So here's the scene I'm working with. I am going to make a few changes and I'll talk about those while I'm painting. But for the most part, I'm going to try to keep it fairly true to what I'm seeing. I'll be painting on a 24 by 24 inch stretched linen canvas, and I'll be using my usual limited palette. Mapping out the big shapes using some burnt sienna that I've thinned with odorless mineral spirits. I first established the large shapes, and now I'm going in with a bit more definition, but not much. I just want a basic arrangement of shapes that is appealing, and once I've got that, then I'll start working from dark to light. I think I'm pretty close right there. So we've got the bridge, which I've moved to the left. The tower was coming up right here, which I did not like, and there's the road going off this way. There's a big grouping of trees right here. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I kind of shaded it in a bit just to give myself an idea if it would feel too heavy over here, but I could keep the value light. All right, so I am squinting at the scene to simplify the shapes. First starting off with the trees that line the street here, and there's some shadows cast across the street. But just establishing these shadows here will be really helpful. And then there's shadow right here as well. As I mentioned, I'm going to try to stay fairly true to the scene, but I always do end up changing things for compositional purposes. For example, I decided to raise the mountains in the background. A lot of times the shapes will be intersecting in awkward ways, and so compositionally it just doesn't really work out. So sometimes I have to change things around. And I think painting seascapes and landscapes has been very helpful. When I first started painting, I was really hesitant to change what I saw. I would just reproduce or try to reproduce as best I could what I was seeing. And I found that my compositions were lacking. So I started experimenting with changing and moving shapes. And now I feel pretty comfortable with that, and I do it pretty much in every painting. It's pretty rare that you're going to find a perfect composition. The sun is moving pretty quickly here. I'm going to lose the shadows on these buildings, and I like the dark silhouette against the bay, so I want to map out the buildings that are going to change the most. And I'm just approximating the colors. I'm more interested in establishing a value pattern at this point because the composition really is the value pattern. And what I mean by that is having a nice arrangement of darks and lights. I've noticed that there's a vanishing point right here, so I am leading all the lines towards that vanishing point. For example, like where the tops of the windows are, like this. So that's something I like to do. It really helps when I'm painting buildings. There's sort of a Victorian building right here. I like to include objects that are close to the viewer in the picture plane, and then ones that are in the distance. So you've got these buildings in the foreground, this sort of mid-ground, and then the distant bridge. I do keep those things in mind when I am composing. And I'm thinning with liquid at this point. I'd like to finish this painting in less than 3 hours, just because the light is changing so quickly. Also, I find that I get fatigued when I'm painting for a long period of time, and then I start making lazy decisions. All right, so the roof line here sort of goes like that. There's like a little bit of an overhang here. All right, I'm gonna quickly scrub in these tree shapes, and I'll leave little areas of light, like say right here, and there's another area of light right here, and there's another tree down here at the bottom. It's kind of more of a blue-greenish color. Again, more focusing on values at this point, trying to get the shadow patterns established before the light changes too much. See, these trees are lighter in value down here. And there's also a tree on this side right here. These canvases are somewhat challenging to paint on because they're not very absorbent. One thing I do like about them is I can get this sort of scrubby effect by thinning the paint and then just scrubbing it on. And I do want to have areas of transparency like this in my shadow shapes. And there's some trees in the foreground here that are more of a blue-green color. So I made this green using phthalo blue and a bit of cadmium yellow medium. And it's nice to have a variety of greens. I'm going to be adding some highlights on the tops of these plants here. All right, so I'm trying to step back as much as possible. However, I'm right in the line of the cable cars here, so I got to be really careful. All right, so I found myself getting bogged in detail in this area, and so I just squinted to simplify, and there it is. All right, for the street, I'm going with a warm gray mixture, and I'm keeping the value dark enough that when I add highlights to the cars, they'll stand out. And I'll probably need to warm that up a bit too. All right, so I'm adding some definition to this building here. And then I also darkened up the bridge a bit. I did use a straight edge for this portion here, just because I wanted to make sure that it was perfectly horizontal. All right, for the sky, I'm going with a mixture of titanium white and a touch of phthalo blue. And I will be making adjustments to the sky, but this is a good starting point. Still thinning with liquid. The liquid really does help me apply the paint quickly. I want to get the sky blocked in before I paint this distant mountain. I'm going to keep the value of the distant mountain very light in order to push it into the background. And there's more sky on this side here. Once you get used to breaking down a scene into simple shapes, the block-in process goes fairly quickly. Oops, that needs to be mountain. All right, for the distant hills, I'm using a mixture of ultramarine blue and titanium white. And I think that's enough separation right there. But like I said, I want the distant mountains to be very light in value. I want the bridge to stand out against the background. For the water, starting with a blue-green mixture of phthalo blue, titanium white, and some cadmium yellow medium. And there is a bit of the distant shoreline visible under the bridge. I did not paint that in yet, but I will. And there's also a cast shadow on the water. Adjust that a little bit. All right, so there is the block in. It's been about an hour so far. I am starting to lose the shade here, so I'm probably gonna have to move my easel. All right, so I moved my easel. I was over here. Now I'm going in with thicker paint, sort of defining the shapes. Once I've got the value structure set up, then the rest is kind of fun. It's kind of like play. All right, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about 2.5 hours to complete. It was finished on site. When I got it home, I realized there was something about the color that bothered me, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. I feel like there's too much blue-green in the painting. There's a blue-green-orange relationship that kind of bothers me, but I wasn't sure what to do about it. So I pulled up a chair and I stared at the painting. And sometimes when I don't know what to do, I just think, all right, what is one thing that I can pick out that I'd like to fix? The first thing that popped out was this building in the center here, the kind of orangish building. I want to cool that off. And then what else? Then this building here, the color of this building, this orange aqua relationship here, I don't like that, so I want to eliminate that. And then there are a few little issues with the drawing. For example, the bridge kind of slopes off a little too much to the left. So that gives me a few ideas to work on. I thought of taking this water and making this less aqua colored, making it more of a blue, but there's just already so much blue in the painting that I didn't want to do that. Also, I thought of taking the blue-gray in these buildings here and just slightly warming it up so it's a warmer gray and not so blue, and then also possibly have some variation. But I really do like the composition, and there's some things about this painting that I really like. So it's just a matter of figuring out how to bring it in for a landing. All right, so I've got the easel set up here on my driveway. When I do touch-ups, I do them outdoors in the shade. I've mixed up a warm gray using ultramarine blue, a touch of burnt sienna, and some titanium white. First thing I want to do is eliminate this orangish warm spot in the center of the painting, and I'm not sure about the value of this this building here. I might have to darken it a little bit. We'll see. I just want to eliminate that orange color though and see how I feel about it. I do think that's better. All right, now I'm using that same color for this building right here. As I mentioned, I thought it might be nice to create a little bit of variation within these blue grays. And so I'm starting with this building here. One of the nice things about using liquid is that the painting dries completely within a few days, and then I can do touch-ups without worrying about messing up the painting or working into sticky paint that's only partially dried. The other nice thing is that if I don't like what I've done, I can just wipe it off because the paint underneath is completely dry. All right, that creates a little bit of variation. All right, so I'm gonna fix the bridge, and I feel like it's just the bottom portion that comes down too much. And that might do it right there. I just stepped back and I could tell that I need a little more definition right here. I think that'll do it. So important to walk back from the painting to see how things are reading from a distance. Next, I'm eliminating or reducing the blue-green color in this building right here. And I'll suggest details like windows after I'm happy with the color. I feel like that orange, I want to eliminate that. This building right here is the only part that bothers me now, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I think that the shapes might be too big and too simple, so I might add another building right in the front here, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to work on this off camera, and then we'll take a look at the finished product. All right, so here is the finished product. I decided to add a bit more detail in this area. I felt like those shapes were a little bit too simplified, so I broke it up into several buildings. I reduced the size of the rooftop and changed the shape of it, but I did stick with that orange tone for it, although toned down a bit, not so bright, just to have a bit of warmth over on this side. I'm going to live with this painting for a while, but I feel pretty good about it at this point. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. So check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.